IT professionals, mark your calendars. Zero Trust World 2025 is happening in Orlando, Florida, February 19th to the 21st. This event is tailored for IT leaders and cybersecurity experts who want actionable insights on zero trust strategies, practical solutions for modern threats, and meaningful connections with industry peers. Plus, take advantage of hands-on cyber hero boot camps, expert-led sessions, and the chance to earn CPE credits and your cyber hero certificate. Save $200 on your in-person registration using discount code ZTWSW25 at securityweekly.com/ZTW2025. Reserve your spot now. Big ID is the leading data security posture management, or DSPM, vendor, and they do DSPM differently. DSPM centers around risk management and how organizations need to assess, understand, identify, and remediate data security risks across their data. Big ID seamlessly integrates with your existing tech stack and helps you uncover dark data, identify and reduce risk, take action through remediation, and scale your data security strategy. Big ID is reshaping the future of data security, and CB Insights named Big ID the leader in DSPM and the most disruptive cybersecurity software in the space. Visit securityweekly.com/Big ID to learn more. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Now for the Enterprise Security Weekly news. You can check out securityweekly.com/ESW390 if you want to follow along as we go through the news, or for links to the articles we're covering, or for my snarky commentary on those articles. We do have one from Jason as well. It's I think that might be the first time somebody else has added an item, or did you pull that off of there?
I pulled it off, but you already referenced the same exact story around the regulation in the UK.
Yeah.
So we overlapped.
It's great. Jason, great to have you with us. And you know what? Why don't you pick our first news story? Since we typically start with like funding and market stuff, but we don't really have any funding this week. We've got 3 acquisitions, but there's some, I think, longer discussions to have here out of some of these items. So I want to let you, in honor of this being your first Enterprise Security Weekly news, you get to pick first.
So we get to pick in any order here, huh?
Yeah.
All right, let's go with the creepy voice modification by AI, because dadgum.
Have you watched
wild. It? I did.
Yeah. Did you watch it, Katie?
I did.
All right. Yeah, we can talk about this. So that's, I don't know if creepy is the right term, because we have all been on that call where we're like, what are they saying? Like those are English words, but the accent is so thick that it takes like all your concentration for your brain to remove the accent and figure out the word underneath, right? And they're just pressing a button to do that here.
I found it was really interesting when she went to keep her voice, but moderate her accent. It was really good.
Like watered down or smoothed out the accent, right?
It sounded like her. I was quite stunned.
It took those very hard consonants that she's Indian, but like on the Hispanic side, you would tend to roll R's and stuff like that, and it just like smoothed out that kind of stuff and made it a little bit easier to follow. Like just figuring out what you need to do with the accent, I think, is an interesting innovation here. And just for people listening, we didn't mention this is a feature that Crisp has. So I'm using Crisp right now. I've been using it for years just to clean up my audio, get rid of, like if the dog is barking in the next room, you won't even hear it. If I'm typing on the keyboard here, pulls that out. Any room echo usually pulls that out. Also, it does a lot to clean up my my audio. But Crisp, just like Zoom, kind of exploded in the pandemic and has branched out into other features. So it can now record and transcribe all my meetings. And now they've got they've kind of moved into like the call center space here, it looks like, and they have this feature where you can do all these transformations in real time to somebody's voice.
And it's really interesting because you can see and hear, I guess more applicably, the practical application of this. Like I work for an Israeli company and we have varying degrees of accents, right? Of people and vice versa, right? And you could see where for some of those people on either side who have a very strong accent that's harder to understand for, if I'm here in the US and their Hebrew accent is very strong, or my US accent is too strong for them, that's a really good use case just to make it easier to communicate. But you could also see so easily how this could be manipulated. One of the things that really hurts us when it comes to phishing is sort of that trust piece. And, there's science and research behind the idea that like attracts like, right? If you're a scammer and you're trying to get somebody to fall for whatever scams you're putting out, if you call them on the phone and your accent mimics theirs, or your cadence of speech mimics theirs, or your intonation or your inflection.
It puts them at ease, right? We call it code switching. A lot of people kind of naturally do this. Like I can get very Southern if I'm talking to a good old boy,
Yeah.
at it like a farmer's or, doing like a Facebook marketplace transaction or something like that. I've been here in the South since 1986, since I was 7 years old. So I can get real Southern if I need to. But I also learned to speak just outside Boston, so the opposite can happen.
Exactly.
But now you can do it with software.
Now you can do it with software, and you can adjust it and modify it on the fly if you feel like you're really getting someone, or if you're really losing someone and you're a scammer. You could see how this could be easily manipulated because, it's just yet another tool to trick people into.
Sure, salespeople are going to use it also, right?
Yeah,
I would
like
think.
Same skill set. There's a lot of overlap between scammers and salespeople, right?
I
A
didn't
lot
say
of
that.
overlap.
Not me. No, but
Similar
it's not okay. We want to delineate. It's that salespeople aren't scamming, but yes, they use their influence. They use their empathy. They use their, it can all be used for good or evil.
Yeah.
So listening to this and thinking through how it could be used, it's a little crazy. We already know that these deepfake voices are effective. I was just reading earlier today how there was some deepfake on Brad Pitt, and this person scammed this woman in France out of like $850,000.
Yeah.
850,000. I
Yeah,
didn't hear that part.
And like,
Oh yeah.
On the one hand, you look at this and go, come on, you're just a regular person. Brad Pitt's not calling you up, right? And so on the one hand, you don't have that much sympathy for her. But on the other hand, you're like, wow, how, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes with her life in her head and whatever. And if it really seemed like it, and the scammers are doing a good job, which they obviously did, this woman lost most of her life savings. And it's just the deep fake.
The pig butchering stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some really heartbreaking stories.
Yeah, and if you ask around, you can find people who we know probably. You can probably look at family members and stuff who've been impacted by this stuff. Years ago, my grandmother got hit with one by somebody pretending to be my cousin.
Yeah.
And she's in her 80s, and she ends up sending $4,000 off to somebody. And this kind of capability, and this is not the CRISP tool specifically, right? This is just the ability of AI to generate voices and stuff like that. You could just see how, this could be so brutal.
Yeah. And it's I think overall, this CRISP product is a good thing. I'm much rather. I think this is going to do a lot more good than bad. This is going to enable people to keep a human in the loop. I'd much rather someone with AI smoothing out their voice or changing their accent than just talking to pure AI, right?
Correct. Yeah.
But on the other hand, like there's some use cases where a lot of call centers could probably go away, and you'd almost rather deal with an AI than sit on hold for 39 minutes, right?
Well,
So
true,
that,
but when you're going through a phone tree, are you thinking that? Because I can tell you when I'm going through a phone tree, I'm thinking, just give me a human.
As somebody
well,
who is dealing with benefits and stuff like that from switching companies, yeah.
well, but if you don't have humans behind it, you don't need the phone tree anymore, right? Like you all get, the equivalent of a human right away, and you just say specifically what you asked for. The whole reason the tree is there
Yeah.
is to reduce the amount of time that you spend on the phone with a human, because the human was a constrained resource. So I think the IVR goes away entirely if you have something that you can just say in plain English what you need to.
As long as it could recognize it.
Right.
Yeah.
Was that yes or no? It was
Yeah.
yes.
You end up
There's a lot of
yelling and you're alone in your office and you're yelling at the phone and you're like, what am I doing? Like, are we really that far along with AI and we're yelling at our phones alone in our house?
I think, I just remembered the thing I was going to say earlier is one of the best things I think that has occurred to combat these spams are kind of our WhatsApp groups, our Facebook Messenger groups that we're in with the older folks in our life. So now they have kind of this lifeline. Hopefully they know somebody technically savvy within their family unit within, that's on one of those groups. Because I get those questions all the time, like, is this legit? Like my partner's mother is getting up there in age, and she'll send stuff every now and then. She, is what's going on here? What are they asking? Why are they asking me this? And there's an opportunity to help somebody avoid some of those scams. So
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'm on nextdoor.com. I don't know if either of you ever spend time on there, but
I don't, but my wife does, and she loves to tell me about the conversations that go
yeah,
on.
so, some of them are a little much, but more and more I have seen people posting, I got this text. Did anybody else get it? Is it a
Yeah.
scam? And so for things like that, it is incredibly helpful because you might have, whether they're young or old, just some non-tech savvy people. And the fact that they have somewhere to turn to, and maybe somebody writes them a really inappropriate answer like, go away, you old dinosaur or something. But a lot of the time people will write back, oh yeah, I got that too. It's a scam, delete. And so it can be really helpful that way because you have this Insta community and you don't need a tech expert for a lot of this stuff as it becomes more commonplace, right? Like nowadays, anybody who got a Nigerian prince email would be like, right. But
Yeah.
20, 25 years ago, it was like, what is
Not even that
this?
long.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked. I don't know. When I responded, it was real. I got a lot of money.
You did? You got millions of dollars from your cousin, your long lost cousin, the Nigerian prince?
I did not. All right, let's move on here. So let's see. So a lot of these are kind of a rant for me. This is going to be one of them. So story number 7. I swear, so they're not a sponsor. They probably should be, as much as I talk about them. But I'm a big fan of Run Zero. I use the community edition here at home, and I love how their blog posts are just a series of how to figure out if you have this vulnerable thing of the day on your network. So CISA will add, something new. It was Avanti for a long time. Some kind of new device, that now has a critical remote code execution vulnerability to the KEV list, to the known exploited vulnerabilities list. And then they'll just put out a blog post on like, here's how you can figure out whether or not it's on your network. And oftentimes, sometimes it's just a query in their product, right? Like you probably just search for rsync in their product. Yeah, and so it's protocol : rsync d is the search you do. But a lot of times these blog posts tell you how to find it regardless of what tool you're looking for. And I find it refreshing because I think a lot of cybersecurity, the previous conversation we had, is just knowing what you have. A lot of most places still don't have a good asset inventory. They don't know what software those assets are running. And I always found it kind of disconcerting as a pen tester to spend like 2 business days messing around in somebody's internal network and leaving with the knowledge that I know more about that network than anybody that works there.
Ooh, amen
And
to
it,
that.
what's that?
I said amen to that.
Yeah, it's like you guys should know this stuff. Like I shouldn't be. I did one pen test, and something I always did at the start of every pen test, like I would start a vulnerability scan or some kind of scan that's going to take a while, and then I would do a packet capture. Usually before sending out any packets of my own, just to get a sense of what's on the network. And one organization had a misconfigured exchange cluster, and every email sent to TCP/25 to the SMTP port, which is not encrypted, was broadcast to the entire network. So every machine on the entire network got the full text of every email sent to port 25 on the exchange cluster. I don't know how they managed that. Like, I don't know how I could do that if I tried to do it on purpose. Um, but yeah, nobody was aware that all this email was getting blasted as if they were plugged into a hub.
Maybe we're plugged into a hub.
Yeah.
I don't know how you would do that, having set up many mail servers.
It was only email. I think it had something to do with being a cluster, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know how you would pull that off.
All I knew is I started a passive packet capture and collected so many emails and all the contents of those emails. So I mean, that's my point with story number 7 here is, there's a reason that's, in the CIS 18, which used to be the SANS top 20 controls, inventory is number 1 and number 2, right? Hardware inventory, software inventory. Know what you've got in your environment. All right, Katie, you want to pick one?
Oh my goodness. So we just did 7. I'm trying to move around, keep everybody on. Well, let's go to the number 12. The UK ransomware payout ban for the public. Yeah, so I read this pretty briefly, pretty quickly today, but
it's not the first time we've heard.
It seems like it's just backwards. And it seems like once again there's just a misalignment with what happens inside organizations. And when you're dealing with public sector, it becomes even more complicated. And you still have to keep your organization up and running as much as you can, and you don't want to penalize people for being the victims, right?
They seem to think that they can just make ransomware go away by not allowing anyone to pay, because then the ransomware crews won't get any money and they'll move on to doing something else. But that's not at all.
It's like I said, just a total misalignment with the way businesses are run and what they need to do. And it's not even, just don't let them pay and, figure it out and have your backups and blah, blah, blah. It's that these criminals, they don't care. They're going to get paid by someone.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't care.
They're going to hit the employees individually. They're going to hit the customers. They're going to hit the partners, right?
I think one of the disconnects they have, so they say public sector. So, they're talking about in the UK, this is like schools and the health system. So they're not talking about like
private business,
my business or anything like that. That's still not out, banned. But so it is kind of in their control, but they're assuming like the ransomware operators are targeting this hospital. They're not targeting this hospital typically. They found a vulnerability in, whatever random opportunistic fashion, exploited it, ransomed it. Oh, I didn't get paid. They're going to try and find a way to monetize it anyhow, or they're just going to walk on and hit somebody else. They're not going to decrease the demand or the attacks necessarily on this. Now, I'm okay with the idea of saying, hey, you're related to the government, you get funding from the government, you're not sending government money off to a ransomware gang to get your stuff back. Okay, fine. That's the organization can decide that. But the misunderstanding of the person who was talking, I was just like, I don't think you really understand how this works.
Yeah, I think one of the problems is, ransomware goes beyond just encrypting data. They can also take your data and publicly expose it. And
they can
there seems to be
destroy it. They can change it. They can, there's so much that they can do to really hit back at an organization if they want.
Well, but it's not just the organization. I think that's the other assumption here.
Yeah, that's true.
faulty.
I'm using the organization very, very broadly. Yes, of course.
Yeah, the other fallacy here is the idea that data is only important to that organization. And Jason, to use your example of the healthcare system, which is public there in the UK and would be subject to this, every single patient that has been a patient at that hospital could be hit for ransom personally. And we've seen this happen.
We've seen it happen. That was what I was about to say. We saw a healthcare organization get hit. They say they're not going to pay out. And so the operators are like, hey, let's turn around and go after the cancer patients.
Yep.
And, which I think earns you a special place in the cesspool of humanity.
Yeah.
But
special
nonetheless.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that aside, you have to look at the trickle-down effects of not just this, but any type of vulnerability, any type of exploit. The repercussions are very rarely limited to the primary attack target. And this just completely ignores that fact.
So there are, the Register does a good job with this, and they lined up some good folks for quotes here, but my friend Jen Ellis, who is, seemingly on top of everything. She was just doing Hackers on the Hill, and she's commented here as well. And she's one of the co-chairs on the ransomware task force. Said in an online debate in the matter hosted by the Royal United Services Institute last year that the idea that policymakers can simply force organizations to become resilient to ransomware is great, but completely disconnected from reality. I love that quote.
Yeah, she's right. I mean, you can force you to be resilient, right? Like just like you can force me to stop getting treats every time I have to go to Target to pick up my toilet paper, right?
I made the comment a little bit ago about, well, okay, fine. Public entities, you're the government, you can decide what you want to do, but we're going to force you to be resilient. No, we're not changing your budget. That ain't happening.
Yeah, right. Exactly. There's that aspect as well.
Let me apply this approach to something else. Okay, so climate change is a problem, and cars are creating CO2. Nobody's allowed to drive their car anymore. Problem solved. We're amazing. We're so good at this.
Everybody walks.
I will love that later. It'll be like back in the 1800s. It'll be lovely.
Because where you live, there's sidewalks. You assume everyone has sidewalks. This is one of those kind of like availability, like information bias issues, right? Like the people coming up with these ideas are missing so much of the information they need to make a good decision here.
And maybe it's not. Maybe they have the information. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Don't come at me yet. Maybe they just are looking at it through this completely myopic lens, like a 2-year-old. Like either I get the cookie or I don't get the cookie. There's no in between. There's no, we're just going to say stop paying. And so we're going to take it away. It's like if you don't clean your floors and mice come, you start cleaning your floors and the mice slowly go somewhere else with the floor. That's not ransomware. That's not how it works.
It's the same, like we should have a backdoor into the encryption debate. Like it's so fundamentally flawed, and we've tackled it so many times, but it keeps coming up.
It sounds so simple, though. If we would just do this, it would work out.
It would be nice, right? I'd like that for my whole the easy button.
Yeah, I was thinking magic wand, but
Oh, okay. I like magic wands.
Magic wands
So
help with moving when you have to like move furniture around, so dual use.
that'd be good. Well, let's contrast this. I know we don't have this in the show notes, and I should have put it in, but I was too busy writing a blog post on it. The new executive order in the US that came out today.
I
Right?
actually have it open in the tab, even though it's not in the show.
There you go. Perfect. Nice segue. So this obviously builds upon the other executive order that came out. It's looking at securing the supply chain. And this is at least broad enough, and it gives guidelines. It doesn't say much about funding. So, TBD on that, but at least it gives guidelines and talks about the checks and balances. I'm not saying that governmental advice and recommendations are the be all end all, but it's at least a stepwise approach to it. It might not hit all the right targets anyway, but it's not saying thou shalt do, or we're going to come hit you over the head with a stone as opposed to using our magic wand to fix it. But it does have practical recommendations, guidance, resources that people can use to start moving in that direction.
Yeah, I just kind of scrolled to a random spot in here, and they're talking about addressing BGP issues, encrypting DNS traffic in transit. This looks pretty detailed.
Yeah, it's broad enough that it can be applicable to many of the agencies, but it definitely builds. The first EO on this came out a couple of years ago, and it builds on that. It gets a lot more detailed. You can see that somebody with at least some understanding of networking and cybersecurity was involved in it. And it's not too detailed where people are going to have to freak out, but they can follow this guidance. They can start to implement these checks and balances, and it's, moving inches and inches closer. Will it mean we're going to, our public infrastructure is going to be, snap, crackle, pop perfect? No, of course not. But at least there's recommendations, and it doesn't do that blame game that, at least to me, this UK looks like it's trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it makes it clear it's not easy, but pretty ambitious with some of the timelines that are outlined here. Like most of that stuff is less than a year,
right?
And like some of it's just identify stuff that you can do. Some of it is you actually have to do the thing within this amount of time.
It's okay. It's going to be like the RSA submission deadline. We're going to hit the deadline. It's going to get an extension. It's fine. It gives people a goal.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Moving on here. So we do have a couple acquisitions here we should mention. Darktrace acquired Kato Security, a cloud investigation and response specialist. Simulate acquired a company called Sync Secure, which looks like it's an external attack surface management vendor. So Simulate was traditionally, I think, a breach and attack simulation vendor. I didn't even know they were still around, to be honest. But apparently they're both around and have money to spend on acquisitions. So that's it makes sense. Connecting the attack surface info, so like the vulnerability info, with the ability to validate it, which is one of the steps in CTEM loop that Gartner defined. After you prioritize your vulnerabilities, test them, see if they're actually exploitable. So yeah, it makes sense to have both of those under one roof. And then the final one here, Title Cyber, who we just talked to the founder of, I think last episode or the one before that, acquired Zero Shot Security. And I don't recall what Zero Shot Security did. Feeds the processing and analysis of threat intelligence. Okay, interesting.
So it looks like they're talking about using LLMs, an LLM-based reasoning system that maps threat behaviors to MITRE attack techniques.
I love the
with high
acronym for it.
accuracy.
You see the acronym?
What's that?
The acronym for Zero Shot Security's product?
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Natural Attack Reading and Comprehension, or
NARC.
NARC.
Oh, NARC.
Sure.
Yeah,
NARC.
I missed it.
Okay, that's
I mean,
good. That's good. Good job.
It's very memorable.
I will say, having done a lot of analysis looking at attacks and mapping them to MITRE ATT&CK manually, even if it's imperfect, oh, I will take what I can get any day. Because holy cow, you go cross-eyed on this stuff.
Yeah.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Particularly,
actually
it's like an intrusion of like for me when I was doing it was like command lines, so thousands of text file, thousands of lines of commands, map it. You're just like, I hate my
yeah,
life.
yeah. Yeah, I was just talking to, I was doing an advisory call just 2 hours ago. Yeah, where they're trying to do exactly that, where they were working on setting up an LLM to do that mapping for them to scan. I think it was they were scanning like detection rules and things like that to do the mapping.
Good luck to them though, because I can tell you, one command can hit on 3 or 4 different techniques at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, entirely possible.
What was their intent here? I don't know. What was the context?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You kind of need the whole thing, right? So number 6, this new.
Sorry. Did that escape? That escaped. I should stop. Go ahead.
I apparently missed something.
I just read this article and I had similar questions.
Oh, the one I'm starting on.
The one you're starting on.
Yeah. So the title is "New Amazon Ransomware Attack: Recovery Impossible Without Payment." And so it's a novel. I guess it's novel in that they're using built-in encryption in AWS to encrypt stuff, but that's not really novel at all. From the very beginning of ransomware, we've seen them actually using the Windows API, the built-in Windows API for encryption. So when they're encrypting your files, in a lot of these cases, a lot of this ransomware is using your own systems libraries for encryption to encrypt stuff on your system. And I even remember an academic group wrote a paper on this and actually built a tool to collect all the encryption keys created on a system to be able to defeat this kind of ransomware, and it worked. The only bad thing is you're collecting all the encryption keys created on a system, and they found like a single Skype call for like 2 minutes created 50,000 encryption keys. So that becomes a very noisy database to collect. So in one way, it's not all that novel. The ransomware threat's name is Codefinger. So I don't think this should be too surprising to folks. But like many, I think this was, Davey Winder writes a lot of stuff. Like a lot of journalists, they collect a lot of quotes from people, and there were some bizarre ones in there, which kind of took me out of this.
Which is what I laughed at.
And it's part of the reason I included this is there's always somebody who's like, well, did you use MFA? And the attack vector is stealing an AWS API key. So I posted this in one of the Slacks I'm in, and I was like, did I miss something? Or like, are we doing MFA with machine non-human identities these days? Are your scripts somehow pulling a token code, when they're using an API key, or like, did I miss something? Because I'm pretty sure almost nobody is doing MFA for non-human identities for cases where an API key is used.
Yeah, I mean the attack, the write up by Halcyon.
Yeah, I think that's
the
how you say
original
it.
post that you can jump to from the Forbes article. It was pretty straightforward. They're just describing, like you said, just that abuse. But the Forbes article had a couple things in here where I was just like, wait, what? like you said, MFA on API usage. No, that's not the way this works.
Yeah. So, I mean, some people have suggested it. I think there are some ways you could fully automate pulling a second factor from somewhere.
Okay.
So, there are secrets repositories that exist, um, uh, HashiCorp Vault. 1Password has one. Almost all the like consumer password vendors who have moved into the enterprise space uh, have some kind of like Dashlane, 1Password. All those have some kind of like DevOps secret management tool these days. And I suppose you could pull like a 6-digit TOTP key from one of those vaults and send it along with your API key, right? That's not going to stop a compromise at a certain level, but maybe it would stop just a leaked API key being used. But I've heard that thrown out as more theory than anything anyone I've ever seen do in practice. I would love if any of our listeners have seen this done in practice. It's kind of a trend I'm trying to follow to see if that's something that'll actually catch on. It seems possible, but I don't know of anybody actually doing it. So it does seem like a disconnected comment to see that in here. Maybe the person that commented wasn't aware of the entry vector. They didn't realize it was an API key, or maybe they just don't know how cloud works. I don't know. I can't speak for them.
I'll try not to be too snarky now.
Yeah. All right, moving on here. New company, Orchid Security. I think it's interesting. I'm seeing a few more companies focused on automation and orchestration. And I find this interesting, right? Because there's this huge glut of new security companies trying to use generative AI in some way to build something new. And a lot of them are based around automating some of the SOC work that's out there. Because generally SOCs are, the main problem there is too much stuff to sort through, not enough warm bodies and chairs to sort through it, or not the right skill sets there. And it's interesting because one of them I've talked with. I recently talked to Tim Malcolmvetter's company WireSpeed, and he's adamant that he feels like you don't really need AI at all, and he really knows his stuff. And I agree. Like a lot of this just looks like traditional automation. So I'm excited to see other automation vendors kind of moving in here, and I am interested to see like okay, how's an LLM going to help you here? And because they're identity based, they're doing things a little bit different. Um, I'm going to be interested to see how they leverage that. And they talk about it a little bit in this. They just came out of stealth, and that's what this announcement is. And they actually offer a lot of product information here, a lot more than you typically see from a blog post. At the moment they're coming out of stealth. But still a little bit vague. I still have a whole lot of questions there. Let's see. The WordPress dumpster fire is still going. I don't know if either of you have been tracking that, but it seems to get more and more bizarre every story.
I have not been tracking it.
So the guy that owns the company, so there's WordPress, the open source product, and then there's WordPress.com, the commercial product, and the company behind that is Automatic. So the guy that created the open source project is the guy who's the CEO and founder of the commercial side of it. And he's been kind of sticking a foot into both worlds. And, I think some folks have been trying to fork it for a while, or I think where everything started is he was saying, okay, companies that are making money off of WordPress need to contribute more to the open source project, because he felt they weren't contributing enough back. so hosting companies basically that are entirely focused on WordPress. And
WP Engine was the one he called out specifically, and I've
yeah,
seen in
yeah,
the
that's right.
past.
And it just kind of escalated from there, and there's lawsuits. WP Engine filed a lawsuit after it was banned from accessing key WordPress resources. And now they're okay, fine. We don't see eye to eye. We're going to fork WordPress. It is an open source project. I mean, that's part of it. You're allowed to fork it. I don't know the license details for it or the legal details, so I'm going to stay away from any of that. But this is one of those, dude, let it go situations. Like it is hurting. Like people now don't want to do business with you because you're publicly just kind of making a mess of things, and nobody wants to work with somebody who's gonna get pedantic like that. And I don't know. A lot of it's the language he's using in a lot of this stuff as well. They describe his blog post as sarcasm laden. So it's just he's showing his posterior a bit here, and it's somebody, an adult needs to come in the room and put an end to this. I don't know how that happens though.
I thought it was kind of funny, just the final, this deactivate your contributor accounts.
Yeah. Very petty. Some very petty stuff going on here. Yeah. More. Yeah. Well, and that's why I labeled it dumpster fire, right? Like, I'm not even sure if this is really news, but also WordPress is still the most popular CMS on the internet. Last time I checked. And with all this going on, I kind of wouldn't want to get anywhere near it, or I would consider getting off WordPress entirely. So I don't think he realizes the potential damage he's doing to both the brand and the open source project, by wielding his power to, prevent people from. I mean, this is a very ecosystem you need for an open source project to thrive, right?
What's the attrition like, though? What are
I don't
the
know.
attrition rates? Because we've certainly seen other platforms do really bad things, really objectionable things, really controversial things, and people don't necessarily move away from them. We've seen products with founders or presidents or boards of directors doing shady stuff. And
there are web design companies who have never worked with any other platform than WordPress, right?
Yeah.
Like they know WordPress in and out. All the themes they've built are based on WordPress. All the code that they've written is based on WordPress. They're not going to be able to easily move to a new CMS, right?
Yeah.
Like everything they know. Same thing with AWS, right? Like a lot of organizations, everything they've built is on AWS. Like it would not be trivial for them to move over to GCP or something like that. So you're right, Katie. There's a lot of gravity, and customers are not going to be able to escape this. But yeah, I would still be concerned though. Yeah, worst case scenario, maybe some of these folks have to change hosting providers. I don't know.
I mean, the fact that you're right. The fact of the matter is that some attrition will occur, because if you offend enough people, somebody's going to care. But I also see in our society that to an extent, there's a lot more talk about I'm never going to, or I am going to, over controversial subjects than actually backing it up, because for exactly the reasons you said, it's a lot of work. And sometimes that a lot of work is viable and reasonable, and maybe it's not even accomplishable, if that's even a word. But in some cases, it's just laziness. Well, it would take so much work for me to change this service product widget. And there's just ranting. I think it would be great if, in this case, we're talking open source, but if people would actually stand behind the products, the services, the people who do good things, and start to weed out the jerks who are ranting over stuff. But unfortunately, maybe I've just become too cynical. I don't see it.
Yeah. Before we wrap up here, a few essays. Actually, one is an interview, story number 8. That I recommend people go check out, particularly if you've been in the industry for a while and you're kind of thinking about what your next thing might be. This is a lovely interview between Jennifer Leggio. I think I'm saying her last name correctly. And I've known her forever. I should know how to say her last name. And Wendy Nather, who's one of my big mentors that I learned a lot from in my career. Kind of throwing out some career advice as like Wendy finally got hit by the Cisco layoffs that hit tons and tons and tons of people that we know. And it's just kind of waxing philosophical on the next role and stuff she's learned along the way. So it is a lovely interview and a lovely read about that. I'm still learning stuff from Wendy when she does interviews. So recommend checking that out. And also an essay from, I believe this is Bob Lord. So me and Bob Lord kind of go back and forth. Oh, no, he's referencing Bob Lord, but this is Chris Beatty. Passing the buck with hack lore. So hack lore is a term that Bob Lord came up with to kind of describe, this security advice, that you see out there that's misinformed or out of date. All the don't connect to public Wi-Fi, use NordVPN. And, I think a lot of this is in response to somebody who actually posted something to Forbes that was sponsored by NordVPN, talking about how important it is to always do everything through a VPN because it protects you from all the things, all the ills that
those
could affect
VPNs,
you.
they're foolproof. Better use them all the time.
All the time.
Oh man, yeah, it's amazing to me. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too much. It's a great read. Everybody needs. We just. I would think cybersecurity would be somewhere we'd have a little bit more skepticism built in, right? Like that should be part of the mentality that you have in cybersecurity, right? But there's still so many people that just fall down these rabbit holes of, believing they need to buy devices off of Amazon to protect them from juice jacking, right? From using like a public charger or something like that.
I just had this
something we've
discussion with my dad. He loves to purchase whatever security stuff from McAfee or whomever online, and they'll say to me, "Oh, is this going to hurt?" And I'm like, "It's not going to hurt. It's not going to help." And he's like, "Yeah, it's only like $10 a year.
Hurt your
what
wallet.
about?" Well, yeah. Oh, it's only $10 a year. I'm like, oh, for goodness sake. All right, spend the money. It's not going to make you more secure, but if it makes you feel more secure, go right ahead. I wouldn't waste my money. I'd use that money to buy a coffee, but that's just me.
So that brings us to the squirrel stories, and we've got 2 of them this week. Some weeks I don't have any, and some weeks, some giveth and some taketh away. So this week we've got 2 fun ones. One of them is latest big email about the latest big Linux kernel push from Linus Torvalds. Linus, am I saying it right? I think I usually say his name. Okay, yeah. We'll say it's Linus Torvalds. Apparently, in addition to Legos, he's gotten into soldering guitar effects pedals. And there's this company that you can buy effects pedals kits from. And he doesn't actually play any instruments. He just enjoys the putting together, the assembling of them. So he's doing like a contest thing. He's offering to send somebody a guitar pedal that he puts together. So yeah, to be eligible for the pedal, you need to be a kernel developer who has a commit authorship from the year 2024 in Torvalds kernel Git tree. And send him an email with the subject, "I want a guitar pedal," in all caps. So I thought that was fun. That's for a guy who's usually in the news for being salty about something, that's kind of nice. And then the final one is I've been just kind of mesmerized by this.
This one made me laugh.
The rise of the new Enron, which is clearly clear to me, at least, that it's a parody. I don't think it's clear to everyone, which is part of the reason that I'm including it here. And so they've been teasing something for a while, and like they've got some funding. I don't know where they're getting their funding, but the videos are professional. Like they have these fake audiences of extras. They even staged this like older guy putting a pie in the face of the new Enron CEO. But these are the same guys who are behind the Birds Aren't Real, created the Birds Aren't Real, not controversy. What's the term? What's the term I'm looking for? And so this is their whole thing is they just create not controversies. Help me out here. You know
Satire?
what I'm trying to say. Huh?
I don't know. Satire?
It is satire. The things that all of our parents pick up off of Facebook. What are they? What are they called? What's the word?
I don't know.
Some listeners just screaming it, but I can't hear you because that's in the future. No, not a meme. Well, like Birds Aren't Real. What was that? That was a. Come on, brain.
I know we've talked about it because I have admitted that I find bird depictions very creepy.
Yeah. Anyway, the word will come to me.
At 2 a.m. when nobody's there to hear you.
What's that?
At 2 a.m. when nobody's there to hear you. It will come to you.
Conspiracy. Thank you. Oh my God.
Okay.
Yeah, conspiracy.
I did not picture you going there. All right.
Yeah, so that's their whole thing is they come up with these elaborately designed conspiracies that they push for years. So with the Birds Aren't Real thing, I don't know how many years that went over, but this guy gave interviews on media outlets in character, and they wrote a book. There's a book you can buy off of Amazon called Birds Aren't Real. And so it's the same people behind this, and they were teasing for a while, that they were going to have this big reveal. And they just revealed it like yesterday, the day before yesterday, and they call it the egg. And it's this nuclear reactor for your home, supposedly.
About the size of a basketball, a little bigger than a basketball. For perspective, it was pretty little.
I mean, the idea is amazing. I'm sure there are people falling for this who are just losing their minds. Like the idea you could have something that small power your home for the next 10 years and be off the grid. And what's funny is all the science is correct. When they did a whole keynote on this, is like a 6-minute keynote, and their CTO, the technical guy, comes up and just nails. My dad's been in structural engineer in the nuclear industry for a long time. So him and my partner, all know the details behind this, and they're like, wow, he's really nailing like this is a thing that people are trying to build. They're trying to build like the uranium is not good enough to enrich and use for weapons, so it's dirty, right? But it's enough to provide power for, a small data center, a single home, so this concept has been around for years. So it's just a masterclass where they created this conspiracy, took something that is on the edge of feasible, right? And but it's so funny. You have to watch the keynote because he basically recreates Steve Jobs' keynote where he announces the iPhone. Like he even quotes Steve Jobs from that original keynote where he unveiled the iPhone, and it's they just do a really good job with it. So I am entertained.
I just kept boggling at seeing the Enron logo and name.
Yeah,
on a website that's not citing massive fraud and deceit and stuff.
And they did this whole town hall in Houston, which I think is where Enron was based, and they people are still mad about Enron, and they're mad that it's coming back. So they've got all these actors who are like really angry at them and yelling at them in these videos. Like the lengths that they've gone to are just incredible. Yeah, I don't know how they're funding this whole thing, but like the production value is just top quality. It's impressive.
Backer kit.
But yeah, right there in the terms and conditions of the Enron website, it says right in there that it's a parody.
Somebody will think it's not.
A lot of people, if you look at the comments on their Instagram and on the YouTube videos, a lot of people are missing it.
Oh boy, there is a show I saw, some new show called 0 Day, and I was kind of interested in watching it to see what kind of crazy apocalyptic type of scenarios they paint about the crash of the U.S. stock market due to a cyber attack. So I'm somewhat intrigued and somewhat terrified of seeing how the general public is going to consume this type of information about our industry.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure. Yeah, that's the other reason it's entertaining and fascinating. But on the other side of that entertaining, it is kind of concerning. You know, more people not realizing that it's satire. But that's been around forever. How many times has the Onion have headlines from the Onion like made it through real news outlets from supposed journalists? Right.
Oh, it's just going to get worse. It's just going to get worse. Oh boy.
Yeah.
There's going to be no truth. Just what we perceive as the truth.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all we've got for this week for the news. I don't think we kept it to a tight 45. I think it was more like a tight 55.
We had a good time.
We had a good time. Yeah, I'm gonna keep fighting that fight, trying to get the length of this segment down, but I keep putting too many stories in there.
Hey, we have fun. Hopefully the listeners and watchers also have fun. And if they don't, they can turn us off.
They can indeed. And I hope they don't. I hope you're still having fun. And thank you so much, Jason and Katie, for joining me today. I had a lot of fun with you guys. And let's do it again next week.
Sure thing.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Next week, we'll be talking to Mikkel Prins from HackerOne about AI red teaming and Francis Dingha from OpenVPN about building a security business based on open source. See you then.